His name is Jim Dreyer, but he couldn't be wetter or colder. Hey, somebody, get that man a sweater. He just spent 40 hours swimming across Lake Michigan. I bet he'll never take a bath or eat fish again. When it comes to long distance swimming, he can beat any man and some East German women. When he came ashore, beef jerky were the first words out of him. Well, for hours all he'd heard was his coach yell, "Swim, Jim!" He swam 60 miles, and somehow he's alive. 60 miles swimming, I can't drive 55. I'd have lasted 10 minutes, if even that long. Hell, I developed 2 blisters just writing this song. He raised lots of money for big brothers and big sisters. Jim Dreyer is my hero. Damn it, there's another blister.
And then the man who did this for charity rides off in much-deserved glory.
Hey, Autumn Athletes, Larry Sorensen here, and today I'm going to sit down and talk with Jim the Shark Dreyer to find out what makes him an Autumn Athlete that's not done yet. Why don't you start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Well, Larry, I'm really happy to be here on Autumn Athletes Not Done Yet. Yeah, my name's Jim Dreyer. You can call me Jim. You can call me the Shark. I turn 60 years old this August. And I live in Grand Haven, Michigan, right across the pond from you in Milwaukee. I'm actually an event manager. My company is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year. And for the first 5 years, I managed events like, any event manager. Phone would ring. You need your event managed. I'll manage it. And then for the last 25 years, I've been performing professionally as an athlete. So I've been managing my own events through my own company, kind of wearing all the hats, if you will, doing the sponsorship sales, the media relations, and that type of thing.
So tell us a little bit about your fitness background.
Baseball has always been my first love. So I actually made it as far as playing semi-pro baseball. But I've also, was an endurance athlete, running marathons, did get into triathlons. That was a little bit of a journey to get there, but was on the Michigan karate circuit, used to race cross-country skiing. Actually almost made the Olympic snowshoeing team on a whim, which was kind of crazy. What I'm most known for, though, is like a swimmer and multi-sport athlete.
So did anybody inspire you throughout your fitness journey?
My father definitely inspired me. He was a World War II veteran, was a police officer for 26 years, police lieutenant, police chief, always served the public and did it in, where he was facing danger. He had to face his fears in his jobs. And so I think I'm wired a little bit like him. I mean, I've always loved horror movies, Larry. So like when I was a kid, you'd beg mom to watch a horror movie and then you couldn't sleep at night. You're looking in the closet for the monsters. You're looking under the bed for monsters. You're laying there in a cold sweat all night. And then the next night there's another horror movie on and you're begging your mom to watch it again. So I'm wired, kind of a little bit of an adrenaline junkie. So my father was like that. He was an inspiration. And then coaches, baseball coaches, obviously, but my swimming coach, he was instrumental in taking me from literally square one, not knowing how to take a stroke, not knowing how to swim, to, 23 groundbreaking achievements involving swimming.
So you hinted a little bit about some setbacks. Tell us about your setbacks that you've had along the way.
I nearly drowned when I was 3 years old. And my sister found me floating face down in the lake at our family's cottage. She pulled me out, saved my life. And, I try to make sure my sister gets a birthday card on her birthday every year. But the open water was my greatest fear in life. I mean, no question about it. But I thought, if I address my greatest fear in life, every other hurdle I face in life is going to seem that much smaller. And so that was really, really true. I mean, that has proven to be true. And I admired triathletes, and I knew I could run, running marathons. I knew I could run. I knew I could bike, but this was going to force me to put my face in the water. So I hooked up with this coach, and he noticed after I learned some technique. And of course, it took a while to learn technique because I was afraid to put my face in the water. So I'm swimming like Tarzan. The first time he saw me, my head is above the water. I'm like vertical in the water. And he came down and he introduced himself. I mean, this wasn't a swimming lesson. He saw me in the pool. He came up to me and said, Jim, after we introduced ourselves, he said, Jim, I've got to say, I'm getting tired just watching you swim. I can make this a lot easier for you, but he says, I'm impressed. You just swam 12 lengths of the pool vertically with your head above water, because I've never seen anybody do that before. So he recognized there was some endurance there. And after I learned a little technique, he said, Jim, you just keep going and going. You don't tire. I've never seen anything like it. I had nothing to compare it to, Larry, because I've never swam before. I didn't know it was unusual. But if you don't face your fears, you might have some hidden skills, abilities that you never knew that you had till you actually take that first step. Every journey, every 1,000-mile journey starts with a single step, right? I guess that proved to be true. And it's so liberating to face your fears, because truly, when you face another challenge, if you've already faced your greatest fear in life, you're like, well, heck, I can do this. If I did that, I can do this.
Speaking of getting over hurdles and getting things done, we're going to talk a little bit about your media and website information a little later. But right now, why don't you give us some highlights on your personal best achievements?
If you go to my website and you go to the achievements page, there's 23, I think they call them groundbreaking achievements, for lack of a better word. And hopefully I'm going to add to that here in a little bit when we talk about my next challenge. But right now there's 23. And just to kind of summarize that whole thing, what I'm known most for is swimming across all 5 Great Lakes. And I'm one of 3 people that have done that, but I'm the only person who set records swimming across all 5 Great Lakes. So that's probably what I'm known most for. And then the manner in which I've swam across some of these lakes was kind of unusual. Across Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, I combined Ironman distance running and biking with swimming across the Great Lake. So according to USA Triathlon, before me, there's no record of anybody swimming double-digit mileage combined with Ironman distance running and biking. And for instance, when I swam across Lake Ontario, that was a 26.2-mile run through the beach sand along Lake Erie, then a 130-mile bike ride up to Niagara on the Lake, and then a 56-mile swim across Lake Ontario coming into Toronto, and so all total 212.1 miles, 48 hours. So that was kind of unusual. And then also I, in later years, started swimming without a support team, without a safety net, just taking the weight of my supplies. Like across Lake Superior, I had 325 pounds of supplies I pulled from my waist. And I set a GPS reading on Cape Gargantua, Ontario, from Michigan's Upper Peninsula, and swam 60 miles alone across the lake, pulling the weight of my supplies with no safety net. Went through a huge storm, ended up stranded on the side of a 100-foot cliff where a friend found me at 11:45 p.m. at night and picked me off the side of the cliff, where my bones would still be out there. I mean, crazy, crazy things. But swimming solo and swimming, pulling weight and swimming combined with Ironman distance running and biking were some of the crazy ways of swimming across the Great Lakes. Mm-hmm. And then that evolved into, okay, he's pulling weight. So now the term strength swimming was created. I don't want to take credit for that. I credit Jack LaLanne as the first person to do strength swimming, but they didn't have a term for it then. For me, they started calling it strength swimming. And when Detroit filed for bankruptcy in 2013, we came up with this idea where I pulled a ton of bricks, 22 miles across Lake St. Clair, into Detroit. I partnered with Habitat for Humanity the name of the program was Rebuild Michigan, and we were going to start with Detroit. And so we sold the bricks as commemorative items, but the symbolism there was, if one man can swim 22 miles pulling a ton of bricks and keep his head above water, then none of us have to sink with the weight of our financial burdens if we all pull together. And so after that happened, then Stan Lee called, the Marvel Comics guru. and he had a popular TV show on the History Channel, the Stanley Superhumans. And so they had me come out to Newport Beach, and I pulled a 27-ton car ferry across Newport Beach Harbor, and they declared me a superhuman. His words, not mine.
He desires so.
Somehow, he really is pulling this 27-ton car ferry, just like a human tugboat. So how are we looking, Nate?
In the last 40 minutes, he's gotten about 145 yards. He's killing it. He's cruising. He's doing amazing.
Muscle fatigue should now be setting in, but Jim is actually speeding up.
Wow, we're almost at the finish line.
We're almost there. I expect maybe 10 more minutes.
I mean, I totally didn't expect it to be so quick.
He's a machine.
So those are some of the things that make me a little different. The 23 groundbreaking accomplishments. That's kind of the things I'm most known for that you're going to find on that page.
So you got a big event coming up here in just a few days, actually. Want you to tell us a little bit about that event, what you're supporting through this event, and then also how do you train for this type of event? Maybe a little bit about your training in general, but specifically what you're doing for this big event that's coming up.
Yeah, I'm excited. 2023 in August will be the 25th anniversary of my first swim across Lake Michigan. And that swim really launched my career as a record-setting athlete. And I'm still the only person that's made a direct crossing of the lake across the midsection of the lake between Wisconsin and Michigan. So I hope to do it a second time. And the name of the event is Lake Michigan, the Silver Sequel. The tagline is 25 years later, 25 years older, and 25 miles further. Now, this August, I also turned 60, another big milestone for me. And I'm not all caught up on numbers, but what I'm trying to show is age is just a number. So you only get one 60th birthday, you only get one 25th anniversary. And so I want to raise the bar, and I want to show people like, oh my gosh, he just did the longest swim of his life at age 60. He went 25 miles further than when he did it when he was 34, And so I'm excited about that. And this show, man, I love your show. This is perfect. I mean, your audience, they're my kind of people. This is what this is all about. So I'm really happy to be on the show. So I'm really, really excited about that. And to train for it, from mid-June to mid-July, I did a series of open water training swims, all a few days apart. I started with a 16-mile swim. A couple days later, did 20 miles, then 25, 30, then 40, then 42 miles. And those two 40-plus mile swims were in the same week. And I peaked at July 11. And now I'm, recouping, regaining my strength, getting ready for game day. But those open water swims and just sending yourself back out, throwing yourself back out there before you're even completely recouped to do it again and answering the bell is necessary training. But to get that base of strength to do that all winter long, and I've got some video clips of this, me swimming in the pool, doing sprints, pulling a 20-gallon underwater bucket. And I put these large paddles on my hands and on my forearms, and I turn my lower arms like into boat oars. And all the water funnels into this 20-gallon bucket, and it's forced through just a 3/4 inch diameter hole in the bottom. And so the harder you swim, the resistance increases exponentially. And so by turning your arms into boat oars, you're moving more water against the full resistance of the bucket. It's like pulling around a small building, but gives you a great strength base. So then you hit the open water and you're able to do a couple of 40-plus mile swims in the same week. Mm-hmm. Hopefully that'll translate to getting me all the way across the lake, 82.5 miles between Milwaukee and Grand Haven. With the currents, it could very easily be a 90-mile swim that I expect it will take more than 60 hours.
I don't know why he does that. Who knows?
There's a lot of physical training to get your body prepared for something like this, but you also got to fuel your body. So tell us a little bit about your approach to diet and nutrition.
Right now, I'm eating the same stuff. I'm just eating more of it. Your body cannibalizes itself so much during those open water training swims. Like, the week I did the 2 40-plus mile swims, you look in the mirror afterwards and you're like, oh my God, did I get skinny? And then you're eating. and then you can look the next day and, oh, muscles are starting to come back, starting to fill out. And then the next day, oh, I'm not as skinny as I was the day before, but I'm skinnier than I'll be tomorrow. And you can just actually watch the muscles come back. It's really pretty amazing. My big thing is I don't do heavy sauces, man. Some years back, I realized how many calories, how much saturated fat, which is not good for your cholesterol, is in like the heavy sauces that you put on things. Like you think, oh, I'm eating chicken and chicken's healthy. But if you smother it in sauce, yeah, you gotta be a little bit careful. You fix yourself a nice tossed salad, then you put that dressing on there. You know what I mean? So I do all natural oils. I do olive oil, I do sesame seed oil. I will do balsamic vinegar, and then all natural herbs and spices to my taste. So it's not super high in sodium. That's the other thing. Those sauces are so heavy in sodium. So anybody who's having any blood pressure issue, I don't, but if you are, you're watching sodium, those sauces will get you. So, I'm having chicken, I'm having the salads, lots of fresh vegetables, fresh fruits, potatoes for the carbohydrates, but everything that I put on it for taste is all the natural oils and the natural herbs and spices. I eat a lot of nuts. Like if I want a snack, handful of almonds or, some kind of trail mix that I threw together, because they're high in your omega-3 fatty acids and they're high in protein as well. Now, when I'm actually doing my swim, I've got like a homemade granola that I pulverize into a powder that I just pour into my mouth while I'm swimming. Other things too, like if I just need pure glycogen for my blood supplies, I'll just take some pure honey. If you want to hit the omega-3 fatty acids, lubricate those joints and everything and get the fats in there because, you're at such a calorie deficiency, I'll just take a pure shot of olive oil. And then I'm always doing meal replacement drinks like every hour because breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I'm going to have that for like 3 days nonstop out on the lake. You can't leave the water. You can't hold on to anything for support. So swimming for 60 plus hours without sleep and then eating every hour, that's breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but just spread out into every hour. So you just keep those calories going. You keep the proteins, the fats, the carbohydrates going. And I take an electrolyte stamina tablet every hour for sure too, or as needed, to help really with any cramping that's going to happen. That's going to be your magnesium, your potassium, your sodium.
Obviously, you're committed to eating clean and eating for performance, but tell us the truth now. You got to have a cheat meal or dessert in there once in a while.
Well, yeah. Around the holidays, man, if somebody's offering, Christmas cookies or something, I mean, what do? You don't want to be rude, but there's everything, so much chocolate around. And I mean, I'm a chocoholic. I don't allow myself to eat it very often, but like during the holidays and somebody puts it right in front of you, yeah, I'm going to cheat a little bit and have the chocolate. I love pizza, and I know you can prepare, a healthy version of the pizza. But pizza and chocolate are the two things where I've not found a limit. Where if I had no self-control, I could eat pizza till I'm out of pizza. I could eat chocolate till I'm out of chocolate. I've never had a time in my life where I've had as much chocolate as I want. That's never happened. Or I've had as much pizza as I want. That never happens. And it makes me wonder, Larry, like chocolate pizza, that could be $1 million idea. What if we combined them? What do you think?
Yeah, I make a little pizza myself now and again. I try to keep it healthy. And I also love chocolate. So I'm going to have to give that a shot and I'll let you know how it turns out.
Please do. It could be our $1 million idea.
Will do. So what keeps you motivated today? You mentioned you got your 60th birthday coming up. What still drives you?
One thing about what I do, and anybody who performs kind of on an extreme level, and extreme can be a very relative term. What's extreme for one person, not necessarily extreme for another person. But if it's a physical feat, there's a point where your body may want to quit. It's had all it can take. Now you have to have the physical training. You can't shortcut that. But there can come a point where you've pushed the limits and your body says enough. Then what kicks in is your mental toughness, how mentally you've told yourself, I am not going to quit under any circumstance. My dad was like that. That keeps you going. But, when I'm swimming for my second night, I'm hallucinating wildly. Your brain is starting to turn to oatmeal. I mean, sleep deprivation, the whole bit. Getting on that boat just seems like it makes a lot of sense if you're lucky enough to have a sport boat. what keeps you going in your darkest hours when your body and mind has had all it can take is your emotional attachment to your goal. And so to me, that's the motivation, that's the inspiration. I've always performed for a charity, and that's larger than me as an individual. And I think if you can attach your goal to something that's larger than you as an individual, then there's a good chance it's larger than the obstacles you're going to face too. And that's what will take you through your darkest hours. Right now, for this next event, I'm performing for the enlisted men and women of the U.S. Coast Guard. They've done so much for me over the 25 years. I couldn't have done all this swimming without the support of the Coast Guard. And together we've made safety videos, how do you get out of a rip current, that type of thing. I've worked very closely with them. So I want to give back to them. And the organization is called the Chief Petty Officers Association. And I'll give you examples of what they do. It serves special needs that arise for the enlisted. So recently there was an enlisted person with the Coast Guard who had a house fire. The insurance didn't completely cover everything. The charity kicks in. Same thing with medical expenses. Maybe it's emergency travel. These are all recent examples of what this charity will do. And the money's going to stay local. It's going to support the Milwaukee chapter, which is actually called Western Lake Michigan chapter. And then it's going to support the Grand Haven chapter. And so the money will support the Lake Michigan Guardians on both shores.
So you talked a little bit about this charity. I know you've done some stuff with other charities, and we're going to direct people to your website later and they can see that. But give us a highlight of some of the other charities that you have worked with over the years.
Yeah, I've been honored to work for some great charities for the first 13 years, and the whole time I was working to get across all 5 Great Lakes, I was supporting the Big Brothers Big Sisters program. And that's helping kids during their formative years and really truly changing lives. Then it was Habitat for Humanity. That's who I was performing for when I pulled the ton of bricks into Detroit. I swam for them for 6 years. After that, I got really involved in organizing an event I created, a public event really that anybody could sign up for, called the Mighty Mac Swim. It was an internationally sanctioned race across the turbulent Straits of Mackinac. So it was only a 4-mile swim, but it's a challenging swim, swimming alongside that Mackinac Bridge. That event supported disabled veterans. And of course, the Coast Guard is, a branch of the military, and just like the combat veterans we supported, they may not be combat military, although Homeland Security is ready to go into combat at any time. They make no mistake about it. They're willing to lay down their lives to save lives. One of their slogans is "So others may live." So, these are some great charities that I've been honored to perform for.
Now, you're obviously very successful in your athletic career, and you've been able to give back to the community and so forth. But I have to ask, if you could go back, is there anything that you would have done differently over the years?
I played semi-pro baseball, and I was being scouted. I had a reasonable chance. No, I don't think I ever would have made the show, but I could have probably made some level of minor league baseball, perhaps. And I found that out later, because what happened is at age 21, I had a severe ankle injury, and then I was trying to come back and I re-injured it. Ended up missing the entire season. And so I came back to my semi-pro team at age 22, and the coach said, "Jim, great to have you back on the team, but you're just playing for fun now, because the scouts aren't going to take you seriously, and the viewers of this show especially are going to love this." He said, the scouts aren't going to take you seriously anymore because you're 22 now. You're too old. 22, you're too old. Try to digest that. Well, I knew he was kind of right. The scouts are being 21 and missing an entire season is a bad time to be signed as a pro. But so I gave up on my dream. I gave up on my dream. Now I did go back to school, which was not a bad thing. And, everything else panned out for me in life. So I'm not complaining. I mean, it's been very, very good. I've been blessed. But I always wonder about the baseball thing, because 6 years later, I was playing just recreationally. And there was a tryout camp. I was living in Chicago at the time. There was a tryout camp in Chicago for the St. Paul Saints, independent professional team out of Minneapolis, St. Paul. And I tried out, and they were interested. I'm not saying they were going to sign me, but they were interested in signing me. And I was in a position where I really couldn't do it at that point in my life. And I thought, what if I had stayed in the game for 6 years? And a pro team is interested in me now. I haven't played for 6 years other than recreationally. what about 6 years ago when I was facing, some great competition? What if I had done that for another 6 years? And I learned, like, no, I said to myself, you will never give up on a dream again. So I learned a lot from the experience, and I wouldn't be the swimmer or the multi-sport athlete I am today had I not learned that. So it is what it is, but yeah, I would have done that differently.
In broad terms, what is your secret sauce to health and fitness?
I've identified 4 things that are larger than us as individuals. Maybe you can think of others, but I've identified 4. And if you attach your goal to any one of these 4 things, that can be enough to carry you over almost any hurdle because it's larger than you, so it's probably larger than those hurdles. Number 1, and I'm not here to preach to you, but if you're a spiritual person and you believe in a higher power, whatever that might be, it takes a lot of pressure off yourself to to attach your goal to that highest power that you believe in, because now your job is just to do the best you can with the gifts and the tools that you've been given by that highest power, and the rest is up to that highest power. It is tremendously powerful to attach yourself to what you believe is the highest power in the universe, if you believe that. Number 2 is love, doing anything out of love. Now, this goes back to the family person, or for me, love for a charity. That's larger than you as an individual. So that's number 2. And then number 3, and I talked about how much I admire and respect our veterans. Duty above self, whatever that might be. But I always use our veterans as an example. There's not a better example in the world than of a combat veteran who's exhibiting duty above self. That's number 3. And then number 4 is leaving a legacy. We all like to leave the world a little bit better than we found it. And if world sounds a little too big, well, maybe our town, maybe our neighborhood, maybe the company you work for, certainly your family. You want your family to be better off for you having been here. So leaving a legacy is huge. Those 4 things, man, there's a lot of secret sauce in those 4 things, and attaching yourself to something emotionally that's larger than you as an individual.
Tell us a little bit about your website.
The website is jimthesharkdryer.com. There's a drop-down menu of the different events, and there's a menu, or there's a page just for the Great Lakes series that's about getting across all 5 Great Lakes. There's a page just for Stan Lee's Superhumans. So you can kind of go and read a little bit more about each of those events. And then there's a new page that's in that drop-down menu right at the top for the Lake Michigan, the Silver Sequel, the event that I'm about to do. And there, and depending on when you go on there, like right now before the event, there's a button where you can track, it says track the shark across the lake. So you can track me in real time, leaving Milwaukee and then arriving in Grand Haven. There'll be a blackout area in the middle of the lake where we're getting no reception. But there's also links to my Facebook pages. There's 2 pages. One's a personal page, and you can personally friend me, and then one's a fan page. I kind of hate saying those words, but that's what it's called. And those pages will keep everybody updated too. Somebody from the crew will be posting until we run out of reception. And then there's also a button to donate to the cause as well. But so a lot of information about this upcoming event on the website as well.
Okay, outstanding. And we will also place the link to that in the description below. So Jim, really been great talking with you. You're definitely inspiring in many different ways. I want to finish this up by just opening the floor for you to give some final comments to our audience.
Man, in your audience, Larry, they're my kind of people. I mean, I'm so glad that you contacted me and I learned about your show. Because I just kind of knew there had to be a show like this out there. I haven't Googled it. I hadn't found it. Autumn Athletes Not Done Yet. I mean, that perfectly sums it up. And so, I mean, I'm about to turn 60, but I've seen athletes in their 70s, well into their 70s, do some incredible things. And once again, it's all relative. Whatever your health journey is, I mean, you don't have to go swim across Lake Michigan. Stay healthy. And people who tune into the show, that's what it's about, not done yet. I will say this, our strongest muscle, I think, is our brain. And if you could take the brain and put it in a 20-something-year-old body, you'd have the greatest athlete in the world, and so there's a lot of 20-year-old athletes out there, their physical attributes might be tremendous, but they don't have the experience, they haven't gone through what we've gone through. you put our brain in their body, and that'd be the perfect sauce right there.
Mhm.
But at the same time, don't sell yourself short. We can keep ourselves healthy for a long time. I'm trying to swim further than I've ever swam in my life at age 60. And I ramped up quicker in training than I ever ramped up when I was younger. I mean, those 6 swims of a combined 173 miles, all a few days apart. I never ramped up that fast when I was younger. So, I would say reach for the stars. And if you fall short, you might reach the moon.
Great advice once again from another Autumn athlete that's not done yet. Jim, thanks a bunch. Autumn athletes, please remember to like, subscribe, and ding that bell for notifications, and we will see you next time.